the if with people, so I do a lot of stuff where I've got 10 minutes, and someone who has no background at all with any personal growth thing is like, the world's falling apart. What can help? And so people really appreciate quick and dirty little practices, which actually can open into something profound, like the Buddha's teaching to Bahia, in the scene, let there be only the scene. And so lately, one thing I found myself from time to time, just as a framing device, deal with the bad, turn to the good, take in the good. That's a structure. Another structure that I think is helpful for people is let be, let go, let in, where if the mind is like a garden, we can witness it, pull weeds and plant flowers. That's another framing device. You may have heard that one in particular from me in the past if you've read anything from me.
Yeah.
Another one lately is just slow down, breathe, see the big picture, right? Which for me is very relevant to people dealing with very practical issues. And I also make the point, quick sidebar, that it's not either or. In other words, we can both deal with the challenges around us and inside us, deal with the bad for real, and help other people, protect other people, and all the rest of that, while also appreciating what is still working inside ourselves and in other people, and internalize that. We can do that. And also appreciating that as we grow resources inside ourselves, we become more able to deal with challenges. So it's not framed as either or, personal or political. It's political and personal, the two together. As the political improves, as conditions in the world improve, that supports individual well-being. And as individual well-being increases, people become more resilient and typically pro-social, not always, but typically they become kinder and more generous to others when their own interior, lifts, right? So they go together. So I say that. And then of all that, lately, this thing about see the big picture, feel your body as a whole, just like you said, drop into the sense kathunk as the whole, the gestalt, with a little sense of self. That is a fantastic practice. And that has been really foregrounded for me a lot recently in my own practice, to go out into things as a whole. And this is a teaching that others have offered. I don't, it's not original with me, but boy, have I come to appreciate its priority. To go into the sense of your body as a whole, the room as a whole, or your mind as a whole, the room as a whole, lifting your gaze to the horizon, little detail. When the gaze is closer to us, we tend to be more egocentric, going to that riff with Stephanie there about self, not self, the unicorn and all the rest of that. And and understandably, because when in the wild, as our ancestors lived and evolved, if it was close, it was a friend, it was a threat or an opportunity, or maybe someone to mate with, let's say, or just be with. And if it was farther away, it was less immediately personally relevant. So if you lift your gaze out to the horizon or above the horizon, that reduces activity of egocentric perceptual framing. It's less self-referential, and you can just watch it within a few breaths. You lift your gaze out, you look out a window, or you just imagine the sky of mind or the bird's eye view or big picture. You just notice really fast. Less sense of self, less suffering, more sense of things as a whole, more information coming in about the big picture. And like you're saying there, Mike, kathunk, you can sometimes just feel that gestalt, unification of mind. As Sean knows, and maybe others as well, one of the factors of the jhanas in the Buddhist tradition of deep, wise concentration, these non-ordinary states of consciousness, one of the factors of them traditionally is this sense of singleness of mind, or unification of consciousness, which has the quality you were describing there, Mike, of things coming together. And so it seems to me also that as we train in the sense of things as a whole, the chest as a whole, the body as a whole, the room as a whole, the universe as a whole, look at some of those Hubble pictures,
Yeah.
that can potentially foster and strengthen, because you stimulate neural circuitry, you strengthen neural circuitry, especially with repetition, going to what Brian and I were talking about. And so as we develop again and again that sense of the whole, that might prime or develop that factor of singleness of mind, unification of consciousness, which in turn could make these non-ordinary, profound, illuminating, liberating states of being more available to us.
Thank you, Rick.